I'm curious, what do y'all think is the most terrifying thing in your universe?
The Chaos Gods and their infinite life in future and past, even before their own creation in real space.
The predictive capabilities of the Necron forces and how their machine bodies and minds can guess the exact moment anything in the galaxy will be destroyed, including actions of individuals.
Those weird soaps that look like candies. They're not candies! They don't taste like candies! Why do they look like candies?
Dean Steeler, you good there, man?
It's been a rough week. I just want some candy.
You know what? We'll take you trick-or-treating on Friday, okay?
What's that?
It's an ancient tradition originated in various different ways, but most commonly accepted origin story is an old woman getting pissed off that kids kept destroying her garden, so she told her neighbors to give treats to kids on All Hallows Eve in order to give them something to do on that day instead of wrecking her hard work.
You son of a bitch, I'm in.
We'll make you a costume, but I want to talk about what I believe is the scariest thing and the most horrifying faction in the Warhammer 40,000 setting.
With so much in our universe, I'm genuinely curious about what you think is the biggest horror.
The Tau Empire.
I'm with you so far. The Tau are horrible creatures, but I don't think they're a horror, just weird.
Okay, hear me out with this. Tau of the main empire are born into a very specific role and job. If you're deformed, you're exterminated. If you're a shy water caste, you'll be thrown to the wolves. If you're a stupid earth caste, well, you can still be a laborer, so you may be allowed to exist. But what about the other species that joined the Tau Empire? Well, let's look at the models we have first. Kroot. They're physical powerhouses with extreme adaptability. As they eat, they change. They grow into different types of Kroot. Some that eat too much of one thing become a subspecies of Kroot. They become the Kroothawks or the Kroot Hounds. The Tau Empire looks at them and says, "You are the frontliners. You are the close range. You are the melee tacticals." Now, the Kroot are cool with this because it gives them the advantage to get a bite out of everything and everyone, to adapt and change as their shapers see best. But what if a tribe of Kroot wants to build for intelligence and craftsmanship? Well, the Ethereals don't like when people ask questions. In fact, I can actually give an example from their first codex, but we'll get into that in a bit. Let's look at the Vespids. Vespids are a hive species with a fierce loyalty to their hive queens. They, by instinct, serve and guard the queen and obey every order. Similar to the Tau with their ethereals. The Tau water castes will go to the queens, who will then order their Vespids to serve the ethereals without question, and they'll do that to a T. The Tau also call the Vespids the Malkor, which means flying bugs. Sounds insulting to me, but what about these things that aren't on the table? Well, one of the earliest ones we know of are the Pok'Trun, written about in the 6th edition Tau Codex. They are now extinct because of a disease that the Tau were immune to. Perhaps a smallpox blanket situation, though like the colonials from the past, they likely didn't know that they were accidentally spreading a disease that wiped out their allies. But no other records of this species exist in any Tau book or media, so we can only assume that the Tau don't recognize them. Meanwhile, we humans of Earth today still recognize Neanderthals and Cro-Magnon and some other species of humans long since extinct. And we still teach about how cool dinosaurs were, unlike the Tau, who don't even teach of their own proto-species that separated into 5 different sub-ones. What about humans? Gue'Vesa, meaning human helper or arguably ape slave, given the Vesa term is often used for those they consider less than them. Humans who join the greater good are forced into a re-education system and are taught that they are no longer an individual. They are servants to the majority, no longer one, but one of many. Humans are often put in dangerous positions because of their wide variety of capabilities. Explosive works, guerrilla warfare, machinist laborers, and such. Rarely one can earn the rank of commander, but those ones are almost never allowed to sit at the same table as the true Tau. And let's talk about those ethereals. They don't like to be questioned. They don't like to answer any questions. They give orders and view themselves as higher than those around them. It's why you don't often see multiple ethereals working in the same area, because too many cooks in the kitchen leads to fires, especially given their own species have very similar workings as the Vespids. I pointed out in an earlier video, I believe the Xenobiology book, where it points out that the Tau have a strong sense of smell but are almost entirely blind, so more than likely the ethereals work off of a pheromone system, as is theorized across most of the Warhammer fanbase. In one of their books, I believe it was their first codex, I could be wrong though, there was a little story of a Tau fire warrior asking a question of a superior, an ethereal, when he believed he saw a better tactic as to how to take control of a point. The ethereal did not look up, and he said 2 sentences.
You have your purpose. Fulfill it.
That line there, in the same book that the Tau learned that everyone in the galaxy hates them, by discovering a dreadnought, we, the reader, learn that the ethereals hate their own species and look at other subspecies as thralls, who must be wrangled, chained, and controlled. There's a lot of species in the Tau Empire. Some only have one thing about them in a single book, which implies that even the Tau have forgotten them. Hell, we can go into further just how badly the Tau treat themselves and other species in their empire. We can also talk about the Farsight Enclave, but books and entries in the codices about Farsight often point out that the commander is growing way farther than any other Tau, and he is showing signs of losing his mind, especially given he's using a chaos weapon. I'm just saying, you can't begin to convince me that that sword is a Necron weapon. But that's what I think the most horrifying faction in 40k is. The Tau Empire. They take your individualism, they take your desires, and they take your personal desires. And you are not an individual. You are not wanting more. You are a servant and a slave. You are no one in the Tau Empire. So there we go. Shove off.